Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Grace Zuniga. I'm the Director of Civic Art and Design here at the Houston Arts Alliance. We also have on the call Allison Jagers. Allison, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Allison Jagers. I am the Senior Project Manager for Civic Art and Design. I'll be helping you all as you navigate this call for qualifications and then moving through the project. It's nice to meet you all.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share screen. I ask that everybody stay muted and that you put any questions that you may have as I'm going through the presentation in the chat. Allison's going to be moderating and answering questions. And then if there are any questions that are, I typically go through at the end and we'll read the questions so that everybody can kind of see them. But again, there'll be questions happening in the chat and we'll make sure to have a Q&A at the end should there be any outstanding questions once we go through the presentation. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. So we are here today to discuss the request for qualifications that we have out right now. This specific project is sponsored by the Houston Public Works and in partnership and on behalf of the City of Houston and the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. And so this specifically is for the Houston Public Works Civilian Employee Memorial. This is the first informational session that we'll be hosting. And of course, it's hosted today by the Houston Arts Alliance, the Civic Art Division. We'll go through and give you a little information about the program and the history of the Civic Art program in the City of Houston, and then we'll get into the details of the project. So the City of Houston's Civic Art program is overseen by the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs on behalf of the City of Houston. In 1999, there was a Civic Art ordinance established within the city, which dedicates 1.75% of all construction projects that the city is undergoing. It designates 1.75% of those project budgets to commissioning or acquiring new artworks or conserving the existing ones that are currently in the city's civic art collection. There are a little more than 800 objects that make up the civic art collection. You'll hear me refer to the ordinance a few times in different ways throughout the presentation. The Office of MOCA sets goals, establishes policies and best practices, and develops projects for the program. These are driven by the city's arts and culture plan and are underscored by their values of equity, fair investment, fostered by the current administration. The primary objective of the Civic Art program is to enhance the urban environment through the inclusion of art-designed elements in new or renovated municipal facilities with a focus on community responsiveness. All collecting efforts led by MOCA are informed by the city's vision to create a civic art collection which truly represents the people and the character of the city of Houston, keeping in mind the diversity, heritage, and culture, as well as the subject matter and medium. So if you want to learn more about the program and the work of the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, you can visit their website via houstonhtx.gov/cultural affairs. The Houston Arts Alliance. We are a local arts and cultural organization. Our principal work is to implement the City of Houston's visions, values, and goals for its arts, grant making, and civic art investments. Our work is conducted through contracts with the City of Houston, and those contracts are overseen by the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. So essentially, HA holds two contracts with the city, one for grant making and one for civic art. And so our team oversees, obviously, the civic art contract. We also execute privately funded special projects to meet the needs of the arts community, such as disaster preparation, research on the state of the arts in Houston, and any temporary public art projects that may energize other neighborhoods. So in short, HA helps artists and nonprofits be bold, productive, and strong. The Civic Art Division specifically manages the acquisitions, commissions, and conservation of the City of Houston's Civic Art Collection. So on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, this team facilitates panels. We work closely with the artists and the vendors who are either making work that has been commissioned or vendors who are conserving the already existing artwork. We also oversee all of the work to ensure that projects are on time and within budget. And so again, these selected artists in this process will be working closely with the staff here. The Civic Art Collection includes more than 800 artworks and it represents 460 artists. This collection contributes to Houston's identity as an exciting cultural center and thriving economy. And in 2022, it was our work to help grow the collection by 163 works of art. This collection has been built on the city's percent for art, as I mentioned earlier, the Civic Art Ordinance. And essentially, this is a local law that dedicates a small percentage, that 1.75%, of certain qualifying city-funded real estate development to public artwork. For this project specifically, again, Houston Public Works is the sponsoring department, and so the money is coming from that division or department within the city. Their department is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the city's street and drainage, production and distribution of water, collection and treatment of wastewater, and permitting and regulation of public and private construction. So the project overview, again, on behalf of Houston Public Works and the City of Houston's Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, we are requesting the submission of qualifications from artists or artist teams to design, fabricate, and install a memorial honoring those City of Houston employees who have lost their lives in the line of duty. The commission work will memorialize these works on a permanent site-specific work of public art. And the total fee to the artist or artist team shall not exceed $165,000. I also wanted to share that the memorial is intended to highlight these 30 workers, celebrate their strength, and honor their lives through a vibrant and relevant permanent works of art. To continue on the project overview, this memorial, this is the site. The photo that you're seeing here is the site for the memorial that has been designated. The artwork should be created for this specific location, void of electrical or water features, and developed with the consideration of the flooding nature of the Buffalo Bayou in mind. The RFQ that we presented further indicates that this site specifically at Buffalo Bayou Park is operated and maintained by Buffalo Bayou Partnership. And it's really important for you all, for the applying artist or artist team, to develop a proposal that considers and responds to the conditions which may develop at the park location in the case of natural disasters or emergencies, such as flooding, high winds, extreme heat, or freezing. While the selected site is located at the top of the hill with a higher elevation, it's really crucial that the artist or artist team think about the materials, the durability, engineering, installation, maintenance, etc., as you're thinking through, creating a proposal for this call. So inevitable extreme weather fluctuations, as we all know, living in Houston, are likely and prevalent in this area of Houston. Buffalo Bayou Park was specifically designed to flood, and so what is installed along the world-class parkland area should also be designated to withstand slow draining flooding. So that's a really important part that, again, we have in the RFQ, but I really wanted to highlight and point out as we're thinking through this project. So again, the artwork location is at Buffalo Bayou Park, 1800 Allen Parkway. And again, this was kind of that summarized information that I just gave you about the elevation and really thinking about what those natural disasters are within Houston and the materials that can, exist within that. So typically, as we are moving through this process, as I mentioned earlier, MOCA went through a process in 2015-16, and they created a arts and culture plan for the city of Houston. There were 27 recommendations within that plan. Out of those 27, 6 are crucial to civic art. Those 6 requirements are that artwork should be responsive to the history, culture, and identity of the surrounding community. They must be family friendly and suitable for public display and free of safety hazards. This specifically, there will need to be the consideration of the ADA requirements. They must meet or exceed City of Houston ADA requirements. They should be resistant to graffiti and vandalism and require minimal maintenance, have a expected lifespan of at least 20 years, and they should make a significant artistic addition to the City of Houston Civic Art Collection. The eligibility for this specific request for qualifications was open to all Houston area artists and artist teams over 18 years of age to work at the required scale and have availability to accomplish by the deadline. So the Houston area artist is defined by the following. Any artist or artist team currently residing within the greater Houston area. There are, I believe, 9 counties: Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller counties. So if you live within those counties, you are eligible to apply. Any artist teams that an artist lives outside of those counties, but one of the artists lives within those counties. If you're working within an artist team, then you are eligible to apply, but the artist living within greater Houston area must be the person on the application and also must be the person signing the contracts. And so there is that flexibility with artist teams who potentially live outside of the greater Houston area. We currently have the completion date of the memorial to be by early 2025. For galleries interested in applying on behalf of artists, if you are submitting applications for more than one artist, you must submit those applications individually. So if you have 3 artists that you would like to apply for, you'll have to submit 3 individual applications. If multiple artists are included on the same application, that would mean that your submission would be ineligible. So again, this process right now is for the request for qualifications. Typically, the way that we move through a call for commission or a call for site-specific artwork, if you will, there are 2 parts of this process. One part of this process is the request for qualifications, and that's where we are today. The second part of this would be the request for proposals, which has different requirements, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So specifically for the request for qualifications, we ask for a few things. We ask for an artist's resume or CV with 3 pages maximum per artist. We ask for an artist bio at 200 words max or under 2 minutes. One of the things that we started doing last year through the platform that you all apply to is that we are allowing for video submissions. And so each of these sections, as they relate to that requirement, has a specific amount of time that is available for you all to potentially verbally express your bio and your statement. We ask for a statement of intent. This is 1,000 words maximum or under 5 minutes. A statement of intent is a declaration of your plans and ideas for a specific project. This is really important in this part of the process because, again, we are not asking for artists to submit ideas or proposals that they may have for this project. And so it's important in the statement to communicate out, your excitement, your tie to this project, your professionalism, what you've accomplished, what your qualifications are, potentially working with materials, working with in an environment that is as extreme or could be extreme as the park, and your general enthusiasm for the project. So this is really a great time for you to talk about your declaration of your plans or ideas without spending too much time on what that actual proposal may be. The 4th thing that we require is an artist statement. This statement is a written description of the work that helps the audience access or understand the artistic work. The purpose of an artist statement is to inform, add context, and present process and conceptual ideas to the viewer. I would say overall conceptual ideas about your work, not necessarily conceptual ideas specific to this call, which may include sources, ideas, and materials about your current practice. And then lastly, we ask that you submit digital images of completed artworks. Again, we're not asking for renderings of proposals or ideas of what the memorial could look like. We want to, I say that generously, but the panel specifically needs to see that the work that you've completed in the past, what your work looks like, how it's developed, how it's completed, is shown in digital images. You can submit up to 10 images in JPEG format, And within the dropdown of submittable, each image should include information about you, the title, the year completed, dimensions, material, if the work was commissioned or not, and a price or budget, if it's applicable for your works. And so those are the application requirements specifically for this call. It's important to note that the following are not eligible to apply. So any artist who is currently under contract for a City of Houston Civic Art Project. So if you're working on anything that, we went through this process before and you're either in one of our 3 contracts, which is conceptual proposal, final design, or construction and installation, you are not eligible to apply, or you can apply, but you're not eligible to move forward in this process. City of Houston employees, any elected city officials, any of the MOCA staff or their immediate family. Additionally, HAA, Houston Arts Alliance employees, board members, advisory board members, and their immediate family are also not eligible to apply. Applications that do not meet all eligibility criteria or application requirements will be withdrawn from consideration. I mentioned this a bit earlier that all applications should be submitted through the platform Submittable. If you don't have an account, you can go to submittable.com, create an account through the link that we've provided in the RFQ, navigate through that application process. You will have to submit via Submittable. We don't accept application materials via Dropbox or via email. Anything that's sent to us in that respect will be unfortunately ineligible to apply and to move through the panel process. Again, we ask that you read all of the application and requirements carefully in your application. So a little bit of information regarding the selection process. So if some of you all have been through and are familiar with the grants process, the civic art selection process is similar to that, in the sense that it includes a panel comprised of arts representatives. In the request for proposals phase, the civic art panel also includes a representative, in this case from Houston Public Works, and a community representative who is typically designated by the council member's office in which the location of the artwork will exist. And so the first panel meeting, or the first panel in the request for qualifications process, reviews artist qualifications. They select a short list of up to 3 artists for each public art opportunity. In this part of the process, it is the 3 arts representatives who make the selection of the semifinalists. In the request for proposals phase, the selected artists are paid to create an original concept for public art commissions. Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this one, the stipend for a conceptual proposal is $1,500. Those 3 artists or semifinalists will then present their idea at a secondary panel meeting, which will then consist of the 3 arts representatives, the community representative, and the sponsoring department representative. And this is the final step in the adjudication process. Again, HA facilitates those panel meetings, and then the panel of 5 will select one single artist or artist team to be recommended by the panel to the City of Houston. An overview of contracting. Again, as I mentioned, HA is under contract with the City of Houston. The final commission for this project will be broken out into 2 separate contracts with HAA. And so the 3 semifinalists that make it to the RFP phase, they sign a conceptual design phase. That's the first contract in this process. Then the winning artist or the winning artist team will then enter into 2 separate additional contracts with the Houston Arts Alliance. One is for final design and the other is for construction and installation. And so again, this division worked closely with that artist to kind of take you through those contracts so that we ensure deliverables for the city. And so the selected artists must be willing and able to sign contracts for design and commission phases of this project. And then all artists in the collection and all selected artists are required to sign a Visual Artist Right Act or a VERA waiver with the City of Houston. And we have a sample of what this waiver is. Essentially, the VERA waiver is saying that you own intellectual property of the artwork, the city owns the actual artwork, and in perpetuity can take images and put them on promotional items and market the piece at their will, essentially. There's a little more in that. I'm happy to take questions about that, but it's essentially saying, this is my intellectual property, but the city owns it, and the city essentially, once it's accepted into the collection, can do with it as it needs to. So we are here today, the first artist info session. We will have a second artist info session on Wednesday, January 24th at 5 p.m. The same information will be provided to the participants in that artist info session. We ask that all questions regarding this project come into us by January 18th. That is so that we can post whatever questions come in by that date on our website. It doesn't mean that if you have a question on the 19th that we won't answer it. It just means that it more than likely will not be posted publicly for everybody else to view. Currently, the submission deadline is Monday, February 5th, I believe, at 5 p.m. We will then go through the process of the panel scoring all of the qualifications, having our panel meeting, and then we are tentatively planning to send out RFQ notifications to those semifinalists by Friday, March 1st. I will say this timeline, as you can imagine, scheduling a bunch of stakeholders takes a little time. And so these timelines are tentative, although we try to hold true to them as much and as best as possible. On the date of the RFQ notification, you will also be released a request for proposals, and that will give you all of the information and requirements that is needed during that phase. We will also work to getting the contracts out to those semifinalists, etc. And then the semifinalists will have roughly about a month to complete their conceptual design, which will then be presented between the week of April 8th and 12th. That's typically like a 30-minute Zoom meeting where the semifinalists have 15 minutes to present, and then they have 15 minutes for Q&A from the panelists. Once that part of the project is completed, we then take that recommendation, we present a recommendation packet to our Civic Art Committee and our Board of Directors. They're only voting on the process. They are not voting on the recommendation. They're just making sure that we, Civic Art Division, did everything above board and with fidelity. And so at this point, we are hoping to have notifications to artists in early May to June. And then the rest of the year, 6 to 7 months to 8 months for project completion. If you have any questions, we ask that you do not reach out to the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. We ask that you submit all your questions to this email here, civicart@haatxhelp.zendesk.com. We try to answer all questions within 1 to 2 business days, so please be patient as we get to those questions for you. We will answer them as they are received, and again, all questions sent prior to the 18th will be posted on the website. So that takes me to the end of my presentation. If you want, these are QR codes. If you want to sign up for a newsletter or follow us on Instagram, and then we update our website as new opportunities come in and ready to share and make public facing. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open everything up to questions if you all have any. Allison, I don't know if there were any questions in the chat that are worth repeating.
Yeah, I was typing out an answer to one question we have from Dylan, who's asking about the oak tree on the site and how it has some exposed roots and it's going to make it tough for placing a foundation and things like that. And my understanding is the oak tree is planned to remain and that any foundation or any needs of artwork will be accommodated as best as possible by the sponsoring department. But right now, we really don't have further guidelines, just based on the ask to receive various types of proposals, however artists wish to interpret that space. But feel free to add on or correct me in my
Yeah,
understanding.
that was one of my questions, is like, I don't want to hurt the tree. I
Yeah.
will say, and I'm gonna go ahead and share screen just one more time to bring up an image. This is linked in the RFQ as well. But you can see there's obviously the tree here. There's also this like footing here that the sculpture doesn't necessarily have to go through here. Like there's space for the artist to be creative within this space. There is this like poured concrete pad or that could potentially help with securing into that. Although I hesitate to say that because there's I hesitate to say it because like we want the artist to think about the space in full, and so that might not be the best space for the memorial. I will also say that I think going through the request for proposals phase of this, we will have to ask these questions to Buffalo Bayou Partnership, to HPW, to ensure that the location for the memorial is secure in that area, but also respects the biodiversity that's in place there. And so we will definitely take that question and kind of keep it in our pocket. And I think that that is definitely a conversation that's going to have to continue for artists who are in the conceptual design phase or the RFP phase, so that we can make sure that we're respecting the space and the tree and the nature around it, because it will, like Allison mentioned, it will stay.
Hey, can I ask you something?
Sure.
I went to the site. I go to the trails often with my son.
Uh-huh.
And I walked around there. That concrete pad that the bench is on is not structurally sound. It's like half of it has got just airspace underneath because of how much runoff is there.
Gotcha.
They're just thick roots and a webbing all under the tree. It's not realistic to put anything under it. And even if you did like big granite stones and just place them and they're heavy and stable, but you can't even do that because you don't have
Yeah.
earth to level them. So like just southeast of the tree, there's a slightly open space, but then about maybe 20 yards up towards downtown on that path, you have a telephone pole, but that's the best, most open area close to there. And then between the pump and sprit shower, there's a pretty open area, but also have like a fence in the background. So like
Gotcha.
we can't put a sculpture in the tree and probably not under the tree. So I'm really confused by why they picked that exact spot. It really doesn't make sense to me.
So thank you for that information about the concrete pad. I mean, if you look at the picture, it looks like it's kind of like tilted. And so I personally have not gone out there to see, but if you're saying that there's no structure underneath, like obviously that wouldn't be engineered or like safe, right? Like it wouldn't be safe to put anything up there. I don't know, as far as like looking at this picture, I don't know how far left we can go, and that would be a conversation that we would need to have with the city, and we would need to have with the sponsoring department and BBP. I know
Yeah.
there was a lot of conversation with them internally about where to put this, and I think there's people that we can speak to in those specific entities that may have other information about this location specifically. So I
Okay.
hear your concern and I understand it, and I think we should definitely like
It-
keep that front of mind as we're talking about. And again, this is like where we are in the process.
yeah.
The request for qualifications, this will definitely be something that we need to consider as we move into like the conceptual design part of this.
Okay. So it's possible that it could be close to that tree, but not right on or under that tree because it's just it doesn't it doesn't make sense
I can't
logistically.
I can't
Yeah.
I can't speak for the city, but
Okay.
I do think that we can ask that question of them of, and um that was something that we talked about internally, like exactly what space. Like we would really like to see a site survey or something that outlines exactly where, and those are documents that we can request from the city. We just need to make that request, or we need to have those conversations as we move through this process.
Can I say one more really quick thing? I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
people here. Between just southeast, there's an open space, but you have a big telephone pole, and then you have 5 big black power lines, and it's visually, honestly, like, is it just, if it's just the elevation they're looking for, I can understand it. But if you go down the path due west, there couldn't be a more ideal island between the bike path and the pedestrian path that is perfect for a sculpture with the downtown in the background. Just saying. And it might have some pipes there because there's water access doors there, but it does have to be designed to accommodate flooding anyway. So it's just like down the path to the west, it's like prime real estate for a sculpture. But where they're designating, we really need more clarification. So that's it.
Great. No, I absolutely appreciate this feedback. And again, this wasn't like, this was a determination that came into us. And so I think definitely more conversations about what those geotech reports look like, what those site surveys look like, how we move through this site and around the site. So I hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Allison, did you want anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would add that not necessarily in this phase, but especially for those of you who move on into the request for proposals phase, it's a good idea to include anything your project would need in that proposal, not necessarily as like a limiting factor, but just a note on, you know, to accomplish this work I'm proposing, I would need to understand what's underneath the space, how the roots would affect it, or if another location could be provided, and those kinds of details. And we are, as Grace mentioned, we are requesting that information also from the sponsoring department. It just hasn't come in at this time, so we're just working with that information we have.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We have another question in the chat. Are those that are being honored going to be named, and will the names be provided? Sorry, Kirk, I just saw that you unmuted. I can answer that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my question. If you're gonna provide the names so that we're able to, if they do need to be listed, so that we can get an idea of how big the piece needs to be in order to make those names readable, things like that.
Yes, absolutely. That is something that we will get from the city.
Okay, will we have that before we turn in this first phase? Or
I
is
I can't say yes to that. We can request that information. I don't know if there's a delicacy as to when those names will be released. I also am not sure how it's potentially relevant in this part of the project. And so again, we can make that request to the city. I can't say when we will get that. And I also, yeah, so if we can, we can ask if we can. But again, I think that'll be crucial, obviously, in the next phase, in the request for proposals phase.
In relation to that question too, then if you do ask, will there be additional names added over the years?
So there is a note that space for additional names should be considered so that potential names could be added.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my third question, will this need to be illuminated at night?
So the budget typically is includes it's a turnkey budget. And so it should include, and if it's the artist's intent to include lighting in the space, then lighting should be considered within that budget and within that proposal.
Okay, just that in your initial talking about it, you said electrical and water needs to be void. So does that overrule having some type of lighting on this memorial?
So I can get clarity, and Allison, I don't know if you have clarity about the electrical in that space specifically. The electrical and water component in that statement was about the sculpture specifically.
Okay. So there might be lighting from the path. I'll go visit the site myself. I haven't done that, but maybe there's lighting along the path that could serve as some type of illumination towards or for the sculpture.
Right. Allison, I saw you come off mute. I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
Not really, just maybe considering alternate types of lighting as well, if not electrical, maybe like looking into a solar option or something along those lines, but I don't know. I'm not a lighting expert, so don't rely on me for that information. Grace, we have another question about talking about the statement of intent.
Okay. Yes, as I mentioned, let's see. Thank you, Carlos, for that question. So the reason that we asked for a statement of intent, and what the purpose of that is for you as an artist, to declare your possible plans or your ideas for a specific project. In this case, it's more so like, what can't you potentially put in your artist resume, or how else can you expand on your qualifications to move forward to the RFP? What is your enthusiasm? Is there any enthusiasm about the project? What is your connection to the memorial or this idea for the call? And so really just highlighting your resume or the work that you have done previously in this statement. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you have any follow-up questions to that. Any other questions? Okay, well, with that, if there isn't anything else, we thank everybody for their time. Again, if you think about anything after this artist info session, or if you want to revisit this information, we will post this artist info session on our website. If you have any other questions that come in, please email that Zendesk email and we will respond to that. And again, if you feel like you want to go through this process again or listen in, we will be hosting an additional artist info session on Wednesday, January 24th at 5 p.m. And so I thank you for everybody's time. Dylan, I especially thank you for that information and those considerations so that we can work through this process. And just thanks for being here today. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, everyone.